The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And thank you for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored, and thank you for staying up late. Now, according to the Pew Research Center, 80% of black voters identify with the Democratic Party, compared to just 7% who identify as Republican. But in the current political climate, the question arises, how much does the Democratic Party care actually about black people? Joining me now to discuss this topic are Representatives Jolanda Jones and Ron Reynolds, along with Republican attorney Kevin Fulton. Let's begin with State Representative Ron Reynolds. Your thoughts on this? You have been a lifelong Democrat dedicated to the party. Are they doing the most to show appreciation to blacks?
Isaiah, I'm going to be very candid with you. They are not. I think that the Democratic Party has taken the African-American vote for granted. African-Americans have been the lifeblood of the Democratic Party, the most loyal base of the Democratic Party. And that loyalty has been often taken for granted when it comes to consultants, when it comes to candidates that they're investing in, candidates that they're promoting for higher office. Blacks have not gotten the kind of support that they should get based on the enormous support that they give to the Democratic Party. So I think there's room for improvement. Unfortunately, African-Americans hadn't had much of a choice because the Republican Party's policies don't benefit the African-American community. So we're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place, and the Democratic Party has been the best party for our values. Unfortunately, we've been taken for granted.
All right, Kevin, are you asking yourself why hasn't more African-Americans or blacks investigated or looked into conservative groups like you're part of or Republican Party?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just the brainwashing that goes on when it comes to being black and growing up in black communities, in black neighborhoods. I was a Democrat before I switched parties. And I can tell you that I felt that the Democratic Party no longer valued my vote. And so I looked to do something else. Look at it. Representative Reynolds is correct. We give the vote to the Democratic Party higher than any demographic there is out there. Yet what have we gotten for that? We've got our communities still with high crime. We have health disparities. You look at what's going on in some states like New York, where it's a liberal bastion, and they are taking money out of black programs and giving it to people who've entered illegally. You look at Chicago, and Chicago's taking away community centers and things like that away from black communities and giving them to other people that have just entered the community. I look at California. That's supposed to be a liberal utopia. And do you realize in California, there's 52 Congress people elected every 2 years, and they have not elected a black man in 24 years. That is unbelievable. And the reason why is because they feel like they don't have to do anything for black people because they are going to get the vote at a high level regardless of what they do. And I would like to see the Republican Party stop thinking no matter what we do, blacks are never going to vote for us. That attitude has to go away. And I think black people, the Black Caucus has a great saying, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Put our interests out there and make both parties try to gain the vote.
State Representative Jolanda Jones, let's bring you into this conversation. Hearing what Kevin Fulton had to say as a conservative, why haven't you considered the Republican Party as a state-elected Democrat?
So when you look at the things that the Republican Party votes for in the House, they literally pass legislation that is not good for black people. So what I try to do is to stay within the Democratic Party and push the party to do better. I think a perfect example of how black people aren't supported by the Democratic Party as they should is to look at elections 2 years ago. The only Democrats, I'm going to say that again, the only Democrats that lost in the last elections were black Democrats with black sounding names. What does that mean in layperson's terms? It means for the most part, Democrats voted for people that they thought were Democrats, but if they sounded black, then they voted for somebody other than Democrats, where actually Republicans benefited from that. So there's a lot to be done. When I used to be on the State Democratic Executive Committee, much more money was put into, for example, Latino outreach than black outreach, which I've always said this. Black people are the highest demographic who vote for Democrats. So if you get us to the polls with GOTV efforts, then we're going to, over 90%, vote for Democrats. If you get other demographics, you have Hispanic people that are some are Democrats, some are Republicans. So if you just drive Latinos to the polls, it's a mixed bag. Some may vote for Democrats, some may vote for Republicans. And so the Democratic Party has not figured out that it needs to speak about issues that are important to Black people in the Democratic Party. For example, criminal justice reform is important to Black people. That is something that will motivate us to come to court. To come to court, to come to the polls, whereas abortion is a bigger issue for not Black people. So if all of your messaging is abortion, 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 we're entitled to abortion, then some Black people will stay home. And so unless and until the Democratic Party leadership starts listening to its Black electeds, because we tell them what are Black issues, when they start listening to us, I think that Harris County will be solidly Democratic until they start doing that. Right now, you have Republicans who are getting elected citywide, Republicans who are getting elected countywide. When, say, for example, in Dallas County, they figured it out and they always get Democrats. So Harris County, and actually Harris County and across the country, you hear all the stuff they're saying about Biden and issues that he's talking about that's not motivating Black people to come out to vote. So Democrats, we've got to do better. Otherwise, this country is going to be destroyed.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. There isn't just one reason why Black people lean towards the Democratic Party. However, there are some key differences between the two parties. Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld from the University of Downtown joins us now to discuss the economic factors that will influence voters out there. Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld, University of Houston Downtown. Let's hear your perspective and how the African-American voter, how they're treated by the Democratic Party.
Right. I think the prior speakers have touched on this idea of being taken advantage. And when we think about it from an economic standpoint, we see this with employers. Employees who switch jobs oftentimes see higher salaries than those who show proven loyalty to their employer. The person who stays there gets that 2% year-over-year raise, and the person who comes in new has a competitive market salary. And so I think the Democratic Party has seen a very real concern that the Hispanic population is increasing vastly more rapidly than the Black population. So from a strategic or economic perspective, there is an incentive to draw in those votes. There's also the competitive nature, though, where if you think 30% or so of Hispanics voted for Trump, but only or fewer than 15%, probably closer to 8% voted for Trump out of the Black population. Why am I worried about this? Well, again, strategically, you would say common sense. Who carried Joe Biden through Georgia? Who carried Joe Biden through Pennsylvania? Black voters. But then looking at the population, looking at the economic parity, that $1.3 to $1.5 trillion spending power of the Black population, the Hispanic population is catching up with that very quickly. We're just not having babies. And so I think these concerns on a very real point of totemism say, okay, Squirrel Clan, Bear Clan, whatever, the Democratic Party hasn't looked at that, but they also are looking strategically and saying, we need more people. But I think the economic part of this is a lot of times when you look at consumers, you may have people who are very vocal about a certain product that they can't afford. And we think back to the resignation of a certain Mississippi senator years ago for comments positive towards Strom Thurmond, a segregationist. He didn't have to resign from leadership in a realistic sense because his voters in Mississippi would have sent him back another 6 years, maybe if he had made even more controversial comments. So when we think about this interplay, I think Black voters overall, and this is one of the challenges Joe Biden has experienced in retaining popularity, is the economics aspect and the realization that there is more distinction between social conservatism or liberalism and fiscal conservatism and liberalism, and the Black community does not see the economic benefits. Many, many people, this is a census thing, not a party thing, are looking at not going to church, not having those same socially conservative values. So when you remove that attraction or area of social concern or social welfare, and you say, let's just look at the money, well, which party is doing the most for us? And I do think that the Democratic Party has said, we don't have to do as much for these people because they're going to show up, versus this other community. We need to entice them. There are more of them. The economic power is growing. And there's a better chance that if we can swing them, it'll reduce the turnout.
Make sure you stay with us. We will be right back. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. The debate about political parties has persisted throughout history. Many of us have witnessed that. One of our panelists argues that it's time for black people to consider leaning towards Republicans because they do more for them. Representative Reynolds, if blacks walked away, what do you think it will take to get the attention of the Democratic Party, to get the attention that black voters deserve?
Well, Isaiah, there's been talk. I mean, you see it right now with Biden's polling numbers, with African Americans, particularly African American men, saying, no, we're not voting for you. We're not supporting you. He would lose the election if the African American turnout goes significantly down in those swing states. Quite frankly, there won't be a Biden victory. Many of the Democrats won't win in these elections for Congress and U.S. Senate. The Republicans will retake the Senate, and they'll keep the House. And so African Americans, President Douglas said it best, that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. We have to demand a seat at the table. We won't continue to be on the menu. The issues that African Americans care about have to be front and center and paramount. And so President Biden, I think we have his attention, but unfortunately, sometimes it takes people losing elections. I don't want that to happen, but unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. I think then it'll be like, oh, I wish we could have, should have. We'll be playing armchair quarterback. So I'm hoping and praying, and I'm imploring upon the Democratic Party. We've done it here at the state level. We're doing it at the national level, saying, look, you guys better pay attention, or else we will lose, and we will be miserable with these failed Republican policies. So I think we got their attention, and we just have to change course before it's too late, before the election happens in November.
I don't know that we have. I don't know that we've gotten their attention, Representative. I just don't think that we have. They're not listening to us. Like, if I were the Democratic Party, say across the country and even in Texas, I would literally talk to my black elected officials who live in the communities that they represent, and I would say, hey, what's going to move your voters to the polls? Because I think that when you're talking about economic prosperity and what actually gets people to the polls, that's a problem. When you got black women dying at higher rates when they deliver babies, when you have black babies dying at higher rates, when you have more black people getting killed by the police, when you have more black people not having access to healthcare, loans, or affordable housing, you've got to speak to those issues to motivate us to come to the polls and try to vote for you so that our lives can be better. And when you are deciding that there are more people because they're having more babies and we have a better chance for them to vote for us, when there's not a history of them voting for us, I think you're going for what is it called? Something in the hand is worth one in the bush. I can't remember what that is. And that's where I think that we're failing. And I know that myself and Chairman Reynolds constantly and consistently talk to the Democratic Party and say, hey, this is what we need to do. I've had this same conversation with Beto O'Rourke when he ran for governor. These things need to be done in order to motivate black people to come to the polls to help Democrats win. And nobody listened to us. I know they didn't listen to me.
Well, why should they listen if every time there's an election coming up, blacks complain about what they're not getting, but then they head to the polls and give 90% of their vote to the same party? Like, at some point, there has to be some type of repercussion for not listening. And that hasn't happened yet. So the minute they stay home, or the minute they start looking at policies that are favorable for our Republican Party. Look, you talked about criminal justice reform. Who passed criminal justice reform? A Republican passed criminal justice reform. Trump did. If you don't believe me, look it up. You're a lawyer. Look it up. Criminal justice reform was passed and signed by Trump, who actually pushed it. Funding for historical black colleges. I guess you're going to forget that happened also under Trump. He provided more funding for historical black colleges than any president before. So I'm not saying you have to like Trump or look at Trump, but I'm saying even look at your local Republican Party, look at your county Republican Party, look at your state Republican parties, and see if there's something in the platforms that you believe in that helps the black community. Even tax credits for hiring people from low-income areas. That's something that the Republican Party has constantly pushed and has gotten resistance from. So all I'm saying is, Our loyalty should not be to one party. Our loyalty should be to the interests that best serve our community. And if our interests in our communities are not being served by a party, then we have to look at other options rather than saying every time at a 90% rate, we're going to keep going back to that same party. And I hate the idea that we're loyal to a party more than our community. I see headlines. I saw one the other day. USA Today said, "Oh, the blacks are abandoning the Democratic Party." Abandon? You can abandon your kids, your family, your friends because you have loyalty to them. Then I can see the word abandon. You're not abandoning a party because we have no loyalty to them. We should pick what is best for our communities, and right now that's just not happening.
All right, guys, we're out of time. We want to thank you. This is a conversation that could carry the whole show.
For sure.
Thank you all for joining us tonight for
Thank you, Isaiah.
a very important conversation. We appreciate you.